So the other day, this headline came out, and I found it really, really interesting, the responses to it. Now, as you can see, GB News tell us Rupert Lowe has sparked furious debate after revealing he had his 17-year-old dog shot by a gamekeeper rather than euthanized at a vet. He called it the kindest thing. Critics say it was cruel and unnecessary. Well, I mean, I'm sure he wasn't doing it for fun, right? We'll get into the details of it. But notice he had it shot by a gamekeeper rather than euthanized by the vet. Right, so being shot by the gamekeeper, instant death, right? That's over in a moment. The dog is just alive one minute and not alive the next. So it's not suffering. So the issue isn't one of suffering. The issue is you didn't go through the official channels, right? You didn't have a bureaucracy or a professional and expert do something for you. And I think that is at the heart of a lot of the complaints on this, is that you took, you made a judgment, which I'm sure was the correct judgment. 17 years is a very old dog, right? So it must have been pretty well cared for its life to get to that grand old age. And then you decided not to take it to the sterile clinical environment and have a stranger put it to an end through the use of, drugs or whatever. Right. So the problem is there is a process here, there is a procedure that's been set up by essentially bureaucrats. And Rupert Lowe decided not to follow it, and he did what a man does, which is take the action on himself. His gamekeeper did it. But he had it done independently, right? So the action of putting the dog down is not in question. That's fine. Obviously, the dog was sick. The question is, why didn't he follow the bureaucratic procedure? And you see lots of people who just, this is a pretty common thing that I've seen a bunch of leftists saying. So Rupert Lowe had his Labrador shot by his gamekeeper. A few things. Who has a gamekeeper? Well, Rupert Lowe is a self-made millionaire, right? He has lots of businesses and he's made lots of money. He's a rich man who owns lands and goes hunting on them. That kind of man has a gamekeeper. You being some bloody, I don't even know who this is actually. Let's have a look. Just some lefty anonymous Twitter account, as in a loser in your parents' basement. You don't have a gamekeeper, right? So don't worry about it. But why not go to the vet? Well, there might be mitigating circumstances, right? What if the dog is injured or something? Right? Is this why he had his guns removed by the police? No, that was based on a false allegation by Zia Youssef. And animal cruelty is an early indicator of psychopathic tendencies. No, it seems from Rupert's account, which we'll go through in a minute, that the cruel thing would not have been to put the animal out of its misery. And this, outside of the, why not go to the vet? That's more important than the animal cruelty to this guy, right? Notice that how dare he be successful is the most offensive thing. Number one on the list. How dare he be successful? Number two, how dare he not follow the rules and use the bureaucracy? Number three, like BS. And then number four, I'm worried that he was being cruel to animals. So that's right the way down on the list, right? But anyway, this is Rupert Lowe's account of this. And you just read it and realize, okay, no, he's done the right thing here, right? Cromwell, which is the name of the dog, was in agony, back legs gone, and in immense pain. His life was over. I asked a professional to do the humane act. Rather than waiting for a vet, which Cromwell hated, we chose to instantly end his suffering on my farm where the dog felt at home. Much better than the sterile, hostile, clinical environment that the dog would be like, oh God, what am I doing here? Better to be at home surrounded by the things that the dog loves, right? And he carries on, how is this news? I'm fairly certain I only confided in Lee Anderson as a friend in Parliament. I think we can all figure out where this story has come from. Pathetic. So once again, there's another reform hit piece on Rupert Lowe for some reason. None of the others worked. This one I don't think is going to work either. But again, look at the fact that he has to come out and defend this, right? It's never easy to deal with the end of a life, right? Especially if it's someone or something, an animal who you love, right? I've had pets die. It's horrible. I've had pets die in my hands. It's horrible when I was a kid. And I've had friends die as I've been an adult. And that's horrible too. And if you've had a dog for 17 years and it's in agony, its back legs are gone, it's in immense pain, okay, what you can do, pick it up, drive it for an hour to the vets, wait until they're ready, and then eventually the dog can be put down by a stranger, or have someone that you trust to do something humane in the moment. right? The obviously humane thing here is what Rupert Lowe chose. And I love this response. I love this response. No apologies from me. I'd do the exact same tomorrow if required. I am a farmer. This happens on a farm. I wouldn't expect Londoners who trap their dogs in a tiny flat for 12 hours a day to understand. They know nothing about life outside of the M25, let alone what happens on a working farm. And that's correct. That's exactly correct. Rupert Lowe, as a man, did the moral thing here. And sorry, it didn't go through a bureaucracy. No, that's true. That's too bad for you. Unfortunately, the vet doesn't get his pound of flesh out of this. They didn't have to pay money. They didn't have to fill out a form. They didn't have to go through a bunch of regulations because the dog was suffering. Right? The dog needed help then and there. And Rupert Lowe and the gamekeeper were the men on the scene to deal with the issue. Again, all of this is about outsourcing personal responsibility and personal agency to an institution, to something that is bureaucratically run. And this is why the leftists are so angry about it. And you'll notice, again, just going back to this, like, one, how dare you be more successful than me? The innate resentment of the leftist shining through. But then, why didn't you go through the official approved channels? Because I'm not a serf, right? You are a serf. You are a serf who hates people who are successful. I'm not a serf. Rupert Lowe isn't a serf. We don't necessarily need the vet to tell us how to end our pets' lives, especially if you have a quick and humane alternative to hand. Why waste the time? Why not take the executive action yourself? Anyway, the Mail writes of shock from MPs. I will take no lectures on animal welfare from a parliament that so dispassionately supports halal slaughter, allowing millions and millions of animals to have their throats slit and then bleed to death in the most imaginable pain. And that is just the tip of the iceberg of the things that this parliament of death will permit. Right? Remember, they've literally just decriminalized abortion up until the point of birth. Right? So women can murder their own, and abortion is a horrific process, by the way. It's literally chopping them up in the womb, by the way. And babies feel pain as well, just in case you didn't know. So that's fine. That's totally fine, right? Babies up until the point of birth who would be, it's literally the wall of the cavity is the only thing that prevents them from being out in the real world, out in the world where they are breathing and living on their own. But up until they pass through that canal, that's it. That's totally fine, right? Old people, they've just passed the euthanasia bill. So bureaucratically, you are allowed to murder people. Bureaucratically, the state can do this. The issue is one of independence. How dare you take this action by yourself? Even though it's clearly better and incurs less suffering for the dog to have done this yourself, instead, you must spend the extra hours and pay the money to get the system to do it for you. No, absolutely not. Again, I am not a serf. I don't need to use the system to do everything for me. In fact, I'm with AJP Taylor on this, right? Where he wrote that in the early 20th century, the average Englishman could go almost their entire lives with never engaging with the government bureaucracy if they wanted. They could live on a private farm and do private things and just get on with their lives without ever seeing the interference of the state. And that's the world I want to return to. We can still have nice things. We can still have doctors. We can still have nurses. We can still have vets. We don't have to have everything mandated for us. And we could live as free people. We have done in the past. And let's be fair, everything was much better then, wasn't it? Anyway, so obviously not taking lectures on people who support halal slaughter, which again, when you watch it, it's just like, this is awful. This is just awful. I mean, like, we have stunned slaughter for non-halal meat. All non-halal meat has to be stunned, and that's fine. It's a bolt through the brain, and then it's killed, right? So the thing isn't feeling pain. Perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable thing to do. Don't take lectures from these people. Where are the MPs on that? Not a single Reform or Green MP bothered to even turn up to the halal debate in Parliament. My motion on banning non-stunned slaughter has only been signed by 2 Tories and 2 Northern Irish. I make my criticisms of Reform public. They should have the courage to do the same in return, rather than hiding behind anonymous briefings to journalists. So basically, he'd only told Lee Anderson this, and Lee Anderson was like, oh, right, yeah, I could use that to try and hurt Rupert Lowe's reputation. But the problem is, this doesn't This just makes him look like a man who takes responsibility for the things around him. And it makes Lee Anderson look servile, weaselly, pathetic, cowardly. This isn't a good look. This doesn't make Reform look brave. It doesn't make them look courageous and competent and manly. And instead, it makes them look like they are just part of the establishment, hiding behind the journalists. Disgusting. Anyway, he ends this with, look, I love Cromwell. I wanted his end to be as swift, painless, and comfortable as possible. We buried him on the farm, and we all raised a glass to a life well lived over 17 years. What a lovely thing. Using his memory to attack me is contemptible. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think John Wong had a great take on this, and so a lot of this is, like I've covered, but this is another aspect that I think is definitely important, right? The outrage against Rupert Lowe for euthanizing a 17-year-old dog with a rifle reflects the state of society. Men have lost the resolve to face blood and death, surrendering all to the state, which is all too happy to castrate them into drones. So Rupert Lowe thereby becomes a man among eunuchs. And that's obviously totally true. The squeamishness with which we deal with these things is a perennial problem that we have. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be honest, I'm as squeamish as anyone else. I've had to deal with these things. I mean, I remember when I was like 11, I had some gerbils and a cat got to them, and like one of them was dying in my hand. It was quite harrowing. I'd rescued a couple of baby squirrels. One of them choked on a nut and it died in my hand. It was quite harrowing. And so, and obviously I've seen, friends who have passed on. It's something you have to face because death is a part of life, right? The eternal desire to be the perennial adolescent that is at the heart of everything about all of this is the real problem. I just want to outsource the bad things to someone else. So I never have to feel a particular way. I never have to experience difficulty. I can just outsource the difficulty to someone else. I put it out of my mind. Oh, thank God. My tranquil, innocent state is there forever. It's like, no, you have to grow up. You have to become a man. You, as your character, will change when you have to go through experiences like this, but you will have to go through experiences like this. So accepting that that is a part of the world and that is a part of what is going to happen to you in the future means that you can face these things like a man rather than like a sniveling coward who has to outsource all of his responsibility to someone else and just get someone who doesn't care, right? That's the thing. The vet doesn't care about your dog. He doesn't care at all. It's just a paycheck to him. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the vet wants the dog to suffer or something, but he's not personally connected to the dog. Whereas Rupert Lowe, like he said, he loved his dog. Like, this was the best thing for the dog in the circumstances, and the circumstances were bad, but you sometimes just have to deal with things as they come. This is just the way life is. And trying to run from that, outsourcing everything to a bureaucracy, well, it's creating a tyranny, right? We've noticed that it's tyrannizing us everywhere now, but it's also turning us into weak men. Weaklings who can't deal with the reality of life. And so, yeah, I think John's got a great point there, and I totally agree with him. And this is something that, frankly, I think is to Rupert's credit. Now, I realize there are going to be a bunch of hysterical lefties who are like, no, it's awful. He should have done, like, things by the book. It's like, yeah, but doing things by the book is not always good. And sometimes you have to do these things yourself.